We all have those big goals, right? Maybe it's mastering a new skill or finally getting fit or
Yeah.
tackling something really massive like learning a new language.
Yeah.
And sometimes you start with this incredible energy, this like burst of motivation,
Oh, yeah.
and then slowly but surely that feeling just drains away.
Defeats.
Yeah, and you feel stuck or like you're right back at square one.
It's such a universal experience, I think. That initial excitement, it's powerful, sure, but it's often just not enough, is it? Not enough to carry you through the long haul you need for real progress.
Absolutely. And that struggle, that exact feeling is what we're diving into today.
Okay.
Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the articles, the research, the notes that you, our listener, provide, and we really unpack the most important insights they hold.
Right.
And today's deep dive is into a topic that feels, well, fundamental. Fundamental to achieving any meaningful goal, really, including something like learning English, which is a key context in the material you shared with us.
Yes, we're looking at consistency, the power of consistency.
Exactly.
And our whole discussion today, it's going to be drawn only from the text you provided us, which actually lays out a really clear case for why it's so important.
That's right. So our mission here is to journey through this text together. We want to extract those core nuggets on what consistency truly means.
Okay.
Uncover why it's so uniquely powerful, according to the source. Explore the benefits, which are, frankly, pretty amazing as listed here.
Yeah.
Acknowledge the challenges, too, because, let's be real, they definitely trip us up.
For sure. Everyone faces them.
And then pull out those practical strategies the source offers. How to actually build it and maintain it. We're just letting your text be our guide today.
It's all about seeing this concept through the lens of the material you found important, understanding its framework, its implications as presented there.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The text starts quite rightly, I think, by defining what consistency actually is. So what does your source material tell us is the fundamental meaning here?
Well, the definition it gives is pretty simple, really. It's just doing something repeatedly over time without stopping.
Okay.
It's not about hitting it hard just once and then, forgetting about it.
Right. It's that ongoing action. The source really emphasizes that this means not giving up after just a day or maybe even a week. It's about maintaining those positive actions daily.
And this is key. According to the text, doing it even when you're tired, even when you're absolutely not in the mood, or, and this is a big one, when you're not seeing those quick, visible results.
Yeah, that last point is something the source seemed to keep coming back to. This isn't about instant gratification at all.
Not at all.
And the text makes it really clear it's explicitly not about being perfect, which I think is a relief for many people.
Definitely. It's just about the act of showing up again and again, imperfectly maybe, but showing up.
Exactly. And the examples in the source, they illustrate this so well. Take learning English, which it mentions a lot. Listening for 15 to 20 minutes every single day versus, say, trying to cram in an hour once every 2 weeks.
Right. The text says that daily listeners' ears adapt. They start to understand more over time. Their speaking improves, slowly, yeah, but surely.
It's that compounding effect, isn't it? Like the push-up example from the text.
Oh, yeah, the push-up.
Doing 100 push-ups once won't build significant muscle, it says, but doing just 10 push-ups every day for 30 days.
That builds strength because of the daily effort. The source really hammers home that that little bit done daily is what makes the real change.
Or studying. It contrasts cramming everything the night before a test, which we've all done probably.
Stressful.
Super stressful and less effective, the text argues, compared to studying just a little bit each day.
Yeah, it gives the brain time to process, to understand, build stronger memories. It makes it a habit.
And there's this analogy the source uses that really sticks with me. The glass of water.
I like that one too.
Adding just one drop a day seems incredibly slow, almost pointless when you first think about it. You barely see a change.
Right.
But the text reminds us, if you keep adding that single drop daily, eventually that glass will fill up.
It's such a perfect visual, isn't it, for the cumulative power of those small, consistent actions.
Totally. It captures the essence. It's about trusting that those almost invisible daily steps are actually accumulating into something significant down the line.
Exactly. Trusting the process.
So, okay, we know what consistency is according to the source. It's that daily, imperfect, persistent showing up.
Yeah.
But why does the source spend so much time digging into why it's so powerful? What makes it such a fundamental force for change?
Well, the source highlights what feels like a crucial truth.
Yeah.
Most things truly worth achieving, they just take time.
Yeah.
And sustained effort, whether it's, success in your career, personal progress, self-improvement. The text suggests the only way to keep moving forward on these longer journeys is through those small, consistent steps, taken every single day.
It's like the fuel, right? The fuel that keeps the engine running on any long-term goal.
Exactly. And by doing those small actions consistently, the text explains that you actually build a strong habit. You're training your mind and your body to perform the task.
Which leads to routine. The source describes how consistency integrates the activity into your daily life.
Yeah.
So it becomes less reliant on just sheer willpower, which often fails us.
Right. It becomes almost automatic. Like the text uses the simple example of brushing your teeth. You just do it.
Yeah, you don't debate it usually.
No. And that transition from something you have to force yourself to do to something you just do, that's where the source says you build momentum. It compares it to a train, slowly starting but then gaining speed and power, harder to stop.
I like that. And another powerful aspect the source points out is how consistency helps you cultivate focus and, maybe just as importantly, patience.
Yes, patience is huge here.
When you commit to doing something daily, you kind of internalize that significant changes are gradual. They don't happen overnight.
Right. You learn to value the small daily steps and trust that the overall progress is happening even when you can't see big results immediately.
And paradoxically, the source suggests that this very act of showing up daily, of kind of enduring through those slow parts, it actually builds confidence. It frames it as building belief in yourself. Like, yes, I am doing this. I am making progress day by day, even if it's tiny progress.
And here's where the source offers a particularly powerful insight, I think. It tackles a common misunderstanding head-on: the relationship between motivation and consistency.
Ah, yes. This is crucial. The text confronts that idea that you need to feel motivated to act.
Right, which is how most of us operate sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it bluntly states that motivation is fleeting. It's unpredictable, like the weather, it says. You simply cannot wait for motivation to strike to take action on your important goals.
Precisely. Because if you only move when you feel that burst of energy, you'll just start and stop endlessly. Motivation is temporary.
So what's the source's point?
The crucial point here is that consistency remains even when motivation disappears. It's fundamentally about keeping the promise you made to yourself, regardless of your emotional state that day.
It brings us back to that brushing teeth idea again.
Exactly.
You don't need motivation to brush your teeth. It's just a habit. The source basically challenges you to transform your goals into that same level of automatic habit.
And to really drive this point home, the source shares a real-life story, the example of Omar learning English.
Yes, this story in the text is very compelling. It paints a picture of Omar. He was busy, didn't speak English,
Right.
and he had this history, like many of us, of starting and quitting. He felt it was too difficult, or maybe he just wasn't capable.
But then the source says he heard this simple piece of advice: just do 5 minutes a day.
Just 5 minutes.
Yeah. And it notes his skepticism. I mean, how could only 5 minutes make a real difference?
This is too small.
But he decided to try it anyway.
So he committed. Just 5 minutes of listening daily, often while doing simple things like making tea or right before bed. And the key thing, as the source highlights, wasn't understanding everything he heard. It was simply the act of showing up every single day, no matter what.
And he started tracking his progress. Just simple check marks in a notebook, the text says.
Okay.
And the source describes how this simple act, seeing those marks accumulate, made him feel like he was actually building something tangible. For the first time, maybe?
That's powerful. And gradually, those 5 minutes expanded. The text says he went to 10, then 15, then 30 minutes daily.
Yeah, he naturally grew it. And he started incorporating other practices mentioned in the text, like a bit of writing, watching videos, even trying to speak.
And what's fascinating is what the source notes next. After just 3 months, it didn't feel hard anymore.
Right.
It felt simple, it says, because it had become a deeply ingrained habit, a natural part of his day.
That's the transformation.
And the payoff is perfectly captured in his answer to a friend. The friend asked how he learned English so quickly. And Omar's response, according to the source, was just profound. I didn't learn fast, I just didn't stop.
Wow. That says it all, doesn't it?
It really does. His secret wasn't some hidden talent or a magic shortcut. It was pure, relentless consistency.
The source uses his story to really underscore that he didn't do these grand, overwhelming actions. He built a small, manageable daily habit. That was the key.
And the text follows his journey even further.
Hmm.
A year later, he confidently joined an English class. He could understand the teacher, felt comfortable participating.
Yeah, he even started helping other students, it mentions.
Amazing. And now the text says he works at a travel agency, using English daily in his job.
So his dream came true. And the source attributes that realization not to luck, not to being extraordinarily smart, but solely to consistency. His unwavering belief in the power of those small daily steps, and just his refusal to give up.
That story is just the perfect illustration of everything we've discussed so far about the definition and the power of consistency. It wasn't the size of the action, was it?
No.
It was the frequency, the persistence, which naturally leads us to explore the tangible benefits that your source material outlines.
Yeah.
What are the direct results of this consistent effort?
Well, the source describes consistency as truly life-changing. It says it fosters improvement, growth, and success across the board.
Not just in one area.
No. It applies, as we saw with Omar, to learning English. But the text says it's true for any skill you want to develop. Cooking, playing an instrument, coding, writing, anything at all.
Because, as the text explains it, improvement isn't some sudden event, right? It happens incrementally, step by tiny step.
Exactly. Daily practice, even if it's brief, is what helps the brain learn and retain information more effectively. It helps the body build muscle memory. It strengthens cognitive functions like recall.
And the source assures us that these small daily steps, they compound over time. You might not notice the change day to day, it acknowledges that, but over time you will accumulate significant progress. And the text says looking back on that journey will be a source of genuine pride.
Yeah, that backward look can be really motivating.
The English-speaking example from the source is spot on here too. You might start out feeling shy or awkward. We've all been there, learning something new.
Definitely.
But the text suggests that speaking daily, even if it's just talking to yourself or repeating phrases out loud, describing your actions, it builds confidence.
Right. Your mouth gets used to making the sounds, you find the words more easily over time, and you worry less about making mistakes because the practice itself becomes routine.
And progress itself fuels future motivation, the text notes. Seeing you can do it makes you want to do more.
Another major benefit the source really highlights is that consistency builds discipline.
Ah, discipline, that word.
Yeah. It trains you to do what's necessary, even when it's hard or inconvenient. It's about managing your time and energy effectively.
How does it give an example of that?
It uses the example of finding just 5 or 10 minutes to study even when you're exhausted. Doing that trains your mind's ability to focus and persevere. And that skill, it says, is invaluable in basically every area of life.
That makes sense. And this daily act of discipline, as we touched on with Omar's story, it builds incredible confidence.
Yeah, they're linked.
Every time you choose to show up, especially when you don't feel like it, you strengthen your belief in your own capability. The source says this confidence actually changes your outlook. It makes you more likely to step outside your comfort zone later on, maybe speaking English in public, like it mentions, or trying for a new job, pursuing opportunities you might have previously shied away from.
And it all starts, the source emphasizes, with those simple daily actions. It's not some big personality shift overnight.
Right. And the benefits, according to the text, extend deeply into personal life, too, not just skills or work.
Yeah, it talks about health, for example. Making slightly healthier food choices daily is much more effective long-term than trying to eat perfectly one day a week and then giving up.
Or exercise, the classic example. Exercising for 15 minutes daily is far more beneficial, the text argues, than a sporadic, intense hour-long session once a month.
That consistent daily effort yields the biggest rewards, the source insists.
And relationships. I thought this was interesting. The text points out that consistency strengthens relationships too.
How so?
By talking kindly, spending even small amounts of focused time daily. It builds connection and trust. People feel closer and more secure, the text suggests, because you show up for them reliably, not just in grand gestures occasionally.
Ah, that makes sense. Showing up daily.
Yeah. And for English learners specifically, the source hammers this home. Consistency is your absolute best ally, your best friend, it says.
Because language acquisition just takes time, right? It requires significant exposure, repeated use hearing, reading, speaking, applying the language over and over again.
So the text advocates strongly for small, daily practice. Listen to a short podcast, write just 5 sentences, review vocabulary while you're waiting in line or during lunch, speak with a friend, or even just talk to yourself.
It doesn't have to be hours, just consistent touch points.
Exactly. And the clear message woven through this whole benefit section is that Perfection isn't required, but presence is. Showing up daily, believing in the power of that consistent daily effort.
Mm-hmm.
And the source culminates this section with a really powerful declaration that says, it's not a tool for success, it is the key to success.
Wow. That's a strong statement.
Yeah, it positions consistency not just as like a helpful technique, but as the very foundation, the prerequisite.
Okay. So with this really strong case built for the power and the benefits, the source then wisely turns to address the flip side, the challenges, the things that stop us.
Yeah, and it immediately normalizes this. It states right up front that these struggles are common. They happen to almost everyone.
That's reassuring in itself.
It is. That initial excitement fades, and then you start to feel bored or tired or distracted, and ultimately you stop. That's the pattern.
And the source identifies boredom as perhaps the biggest hurdle. Routine, which is essential for building the habit,
Right, the thing we need?
can also become repetitive and dull. So what's the solution it offers?
It doesn't say abandon the routine, but it suggests strategically changing things up occasionally. Try a different type of podcast, watch a new kind of video, switch up who you speak English with, just to keep your brain engaged and the process feeling a bit fresh.
Okay, so variety within the consistency.
Exactly. Feeling tired or having low energy is another completely normal challenge the source addresses. Happens to everyone after a long day or week.
For sure.
The text says the secret here isn't to just give up on those days. It's to listen to your body, yes, but still take that small, necessary step.
How small?
Like, if you can't do your plan 30 minutes, do 5. If you can't sit up to study, maybe listen to something while lying down. The crucial part is just keeping the habit alive, even in a minimal way.
Right. Don't let the chain break completely.
Yeah, and doing that often provides a small boost anyway, and it prevents the habit from just dying out.
Distractions are, well, unsurprisingly, a major challenge highlighted in the source.
Tell me about it.
In our modern world, there are so many things fighting for our attention. Phones, social media, TV, other obligations. They're constantly pulling at us.
It's incredibly easy to think, oh, I'll do my English practice later, and then later just never comes.
Yeah, so the text's practical advice here is to actively create this space and time. Turn off notifications, put your phone away, maybe in another room. Find a quiet spot if you can.
Be intentional about it.
Very intentional. The source stresses that a short period of focused time is vastly more effective than a longer period where you're constantly being interrupted or distracted.
Makes sense. And it even encourages communicating to others like family or roommates that this dedicated time is important to you.
Yeah, setting boundaries.
And finally, the source acknowledges that really powerful urge to simply give up. Those internal thoughts we all have. I'm not seeing any improvement, or this is just too difficult, or this isn't working for me.
Those negative thoughts can be really loud sometimes.
They can, but the text validates these feelings. It says they're normal parts of the process.
Why? Because learning and growth just take time.
Exactly. And patience. The source reiterates you won't see dramatic results overnight. It brings back that analogy of planting a seed.
Right, the seed again.
You can't actually observe it growing day by day underground. But consistent watering is working, and eventually you will see it sprout. The source urges patience during that unseen growth phase.
Okay. So if these are the common roadblocks, boredom, tiredness, distractions, wanting to quit, how does the source advise us to keep going despite them? It must offer some strategies.
It does. Several strategies designed specifically to help you navigate these difficulties when they inevitably pop up.
Good. What's the first one?
First and foremost, the source says, constantly remind yourself why you started. What was your ultimate goal? Why did you want to learn English or achieve whatever it is?
Connect back to the purpose.
Yes. Write it down. Put
Yeah.
it somewhere you'll see it often. Revisit it mentally when things get tough. That core reason, the text says, is the anchor. It keeps you grounded and strong when challenges arise.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Second, the text strongly advises making your desired task as easy as humanly possible, especially on those tough days.
Easier said than done sometimes, but okay.
Well, it means don't aim for a big achievement when you're struggling. Just aim for a tiny step, one sentence, one new word, 1 minute of listening to audio.
Got it. Lower the bar temporarily.
Exactly. The source emphasizes that a small step taken is infinitely better than no step taken at all. Keeps the momentum, however small.
Right. And the third strategy.
Third, and this is a powerful psychological tool the source mentions, celebrate your progress, no matter how small it seems.
Celebrate. How?
Finishing even just 5 minutes when you were tired and wanted to quit, that's a significant win.
Yeah.
Acknowledge it. Literally say to yourself, well done. Be proud of the effort.
Ah, positive reinforcement.
Exactly. Those positive feelings are motivators, the text suggests. They make you want to return tomorrow.
Okay. Number 4.
Fourth, talk about it. Share your struggles with a friend, a teacher, a partner, maybe join a study group. The source suggests that sharing the difficulty makes you feel less alone.
Reduces the isolation.
Yeah, and stronger to face it together, or just knowing someone understands.
Good advice. Is there a 5th?
Yes, and perhaps one of the most compassionate and critical pieces of advice from the source. Don't be afraid to start again.
For when you do inevitably slip up.
Precisely. If you miss a day, or maybe even a whole week, because life happens, the text says that is okay. It is normal. Don't beat yourself up.
Just come back.
Just come back. Restart. The source explicitly states this is not a failure. You're simply human, and life gets busy sometimes. The key is the willingness to keep trying, to restart that engine.
So challenges are presented not as signs that you're weak or failing,
Not at all.
but as inherent parts of the growth journey itself. Feeling bored or tired just means you're in the process of learning and building resilience.
Yeah. The source encourages being kind and patient with yourself through all this, and it reminds you that you're probably stronger than you think you are.
Okay, that's a good mindset shift.
So, armed with all that, knowing what it is, why it's powerful, the benefits, the challenges, how to navigate them, let's get down to the brass tacks. What specific practical steps does the source give us for actually building this habit of consistency? How do we do it?
Well, it all circles back to that core idea we keep mentioning, doing a little bit regularly, every day.
Right. And the very first, absolutely non-negotiable tip the source gives is
Start small.
start small. It repeats this several times. Instead of aiming for an hour of practice right away, commit to just 5 minutes. Instead of trying to read 20 pages, just read one. Instead of a long movie, watch a short video clip.
The logic behind that, according to the source, is clear. It makes the task feel easy, non-threatening, which dramatically increases the likelihood that you will actually do it, and crucially, do it again tomorrow. The source says that beginning phase must feel simple. You need that to build the initial momentum required to eventually grow the habit over time.
Makes sense. Build momentum slowly. What's the second tip?
Make it a routine. The source suggests doing your consistent action at the same time each day, if possible.
Okay, anchor it.
Yeah, anchor it. Connect it to something you already do automatically. Like it suggests listening to an English podcast while you make your morning tea, or reviewing vocabulary right before you go to bed.
So you piggyback on an existing habit.
Exactly. By linking it to an existing part of your day, it becomes a natural sequence. Easier to remember, easier to integrate. Your brain starts to expect it, which helps solidify it as a real habit.
Okay. Tip number 3.
Track your progress. The source is big on this. Use a notebook, a journal, a calendar, whatever works for you.
And just mark it down?
Yep. Put a check mark or an X or color in a box every single time you complete your task for the day. Seeing those marks build up that growing chain of consistent days, the source says that provides powerful visual motivation.
Like Omar's check marks.
Exactly like Omar's check marks. It shows you undeniable proof of how far you've come day by day, tangible evidence. And if you do miss a day, looking at that long line of consistent days you did achieve helps put the single missed day in perspective. It makes it easier to say, okay, that happened, but look at all these other days. I'll just start again tomorrow.
Yeah, it prevents one slip up from feeling like total failure. Okay, 4th practical tip.
Reward yourself.
Rewards.
The source says that after being consistent for a certain period, it suggests maybe 7 days as an example, give yourself a small reward.
What kind of reward?
Doesn't have to be big. It could be a favorite snack, some time for a relaxing activity you enjoy, or maybe watching a movie in English as a treat.
Okay.
This helps train your brain to connect the consistent behavior with positive feelings, with a sense of achievement.
Pavlovian conditioning for good habits.
Kind of. And the source notes rewards don't have to be elaborate or expensive. Even just consciously acknowledging your effort and saying well done to yourself is a form of positive reinforcement.
Okay. Tip number 5.
5th, and the text is really firm on this one, practice every single day.
Every day. No days off.
Even if it's just for a minimal time on some days. The source reiterates that daily consistency keeps the habit alive. It keeps your brain engaged with the material, whatever it is you're learning, and helps you retain information better. The text explicitly warns that skipping days makes it significantly harder to restart. Daily practice, even on hard days, makes the activity feel normal. Non-negotiable, like brushing your teeth again.
Right.
Some days will be easy, some will be hard, but every day is an opportunity to reinforce the habit and grow. The key is not waiting for the perfect time or the perfect mood, because that often never comes.
That's a really important point. And finally, there's this powerful concept the source mentions. Don't break the chain.
Ah, yes, the chain method.
Visualize those X's on the calendar.
Yeah.
Right? The goal is to just keep that chain of consecutive days going for as long as possible.
And the longer the chain gets, the source suggests, the stronger the habit becomes, and the stronger your motivation is to not break it.
But what if you do break it because life happens?
If, despite your best efforts, the chain does break for a day, the source's advice is simple and echoes the earlier point. Don't dwell on it. Don't beat yourself up. Just start a new chain tomorrow.
The most important thing is always coming back, restarting.
Always. Persistence over perfection.
Okay, those are great general tips. Now, the source also zooms in specifically on English learners with some tailored advice, building on these principles.
Yes, it does. The core recommendation, unsurprisingly, remains practicing English every single day. Ideally, it suggests for about 15 to 30 minutes.
So not hours and hours.
No. The source emphasizes that this relatively small, consistent daily block is highly effective if you use it well. It keeps the language active in your brain, improves retention. It uses the analogy of watering a plant daily to keep it healthy and growing.
I like that. And it encourages integrating English into simple daily habits, right?
Exactly. Listen to a short English podcast while you're walking or cooking. The source specifically says you don't need to understand every single word.
Oh, that's good to know. Less pressure.
Yeah. Just catching familiar words or phrases helps improve your passive listening skills over time. Or, it suggests, write just one sentence daily.
One sentence.
Just one. About your day, your mood, something you learned. Over time, the text says, these single sentences naturally build into paragraphs and your writing gets dramatically better.
Small steps adding up again.
Always. And speaking practice is highlighted as crucial.
Which can be intimidating.
It can be. But the source suggests speaking with a language partner, if you can find one, or even just talking to yourself.
Talking to yourself.
Yeah, in the mirror, maybe. Describe your actions out loud, narrate your thoughts in English. It sounds a bit silly, maybe, but it helps train your mouth muscles to make the English sounds and improves fluency. The text suggests finding ways to make it fun, not a chore.
Okay. Now, this next point from the source feels incredibly important, especially for language learners who often worry about this.
What's that?
Don't stop just because you make mistakes.
Ah, fear of mistakes, the big one.
Huge. The text is very direct about this. Mistakes are not failures. They are a normal, necessary part of the learning process. They are essential for growth.
How does it frame it?
It compares it to a baby learning to walk. They fall down constantly, right? But they get back up and try again. Mistakes are how they learn balance and coordination. It's the same with language.
So don't be shy or embarrassed by errors.
Exactly. The source encourages being proud that you are trying, that you're taking risks. It even suggests being happy if someone corrects you.
Happy?
Yeah, because it means you are actively learning and improving in that moment. You got direct feedback.
That's a really positive reframing of correction.
Isn't it? And the source provides one final piece of really vital advice for learners.
Which is?
Do not compare yourself to others.
Oh, that's hard in today's world.
So hard. But the text emphasizes that everyone learns at their own pace. Everyone has a unique journey. What truly matters is your personal commitment and how long you consistently keep going, not how fast someone else seems to be progressing.
Focus on your own lane.
Pretty much. The text assures you that consistent practice will make you better. Consistent speaking will build your confidence. Your English proficiency improves step by step, at your own speed.
So the advice is, be kind to yourself and try to enjoy the process itself.
Exactly. Enjoy the journey of learning.
Okay. So as the source material starts to wrap up its discussion, it seems to leave us with a kind of concluding thought process, something to keep in mind overall.
Yeah, it ties everything together with this reality check. Results don't appear quickly.
Managing expectations, that's crucial.
It really is. This is the patience piece coming back again, strongly. The source acknowledges that progress often feels incredibly slow, almost invisible day to day.
That can be discouraging.
It can. But the source insists, with absolute certainty based on its premises, that progress will come if you remain consistent.
You just have to trust it.
You have to trust it. You don't need to be perfect and you don't need to be fast. Just keep going, especially when it feels difficult.
It's stronger than motivation. period.
So consistency is like the anchor that holds you steady when the winds of motivation just aren't blowing your way.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's about doing the work even when you absolutely do not feel like it. It's a promise you make and keep to yourself, regardless of your mood or energy levels that day. It's the bedrock. Progress is built on that, not on fleeting feelings. And the sources share this simple story that really drives this point home.
The busy man and his, 10 minutes of English?
Yes, exactly. The sources tell this story of a man demanding job, family life, really wanted to learn English, but just could not find big blocks of time. Impossible.
Relatable for many people.
Very. So based on this principle of consistency, he decided to commit to just 10 minutes. Only 10 minutes of listening to an English podcast every single morning while he made his tea. That's it.
And people probably told him that was pointless.
Oh yeah. Friends were like, 10 minutes? That's useless. You'll never learn anything.
But he stuck with it.
He did, day after day. Rain or shine, motivated or totally unmotivated, he put in those 10 minutes. He didn't understand everything at first, not even close. Sometimes his mind wandered, but he was consistent.
And over time.
Over time, after a few months, he just started noticing things. He was understanding significantly more. Vocabulary was sinking in, just naturally. His ear was getting trained to the sounds and rhythms.
So he didn't need hours upon hours. He just needed those 10 minutes, but applied consistently.
That's the absolute core insight from his story in the sources. The outcome wasn't some spectacular daily breakthrough, but rather this undeniable transformation over time. And it happened only because he didn't stop.
Right.
The sources use his experience to really emphasize that showing up daily, even in what seems like a really small way, that's what unlocks long-term change. It's the continuous, non-stop effort that matters most.
I didn't learn fast. I just didn't stop. That line, I think it was attributed to someone like him in the sources. It really sums it all up, doesn't it?
It really does. It just strips away all that pressure about speed and needing to be brilliant right away. It puts the focus squarely on persistence. Consistency isn't about being the fastest learner in the room. It's about being the one who keeps going, trusting that those small actions do accumulate into something significant.
Okay, so if that's the fundamental power behind it, what do the sources say are the actual tangible benefits you gain? When you successfully build this habit of consistency?
Well, they describe consistency as deeply transformative. The most direct benefit, obviously, as we touched on with the examples, is genuine skill improvement, real, measurable progress.
Right, whether it's English, coding, playing the guitar, whatever it is.
Absolutely anything. The sources just keep reiterating that true mastery, getting really good at something, comes from repeated practice. Daily engagement, even if it's short, lets your brain solidify the learning, improve your memory, refine how you do it. You literally get better at the skill because you're using those neural pathways over and over again. The cumulative effect of those small daily sessions is just far greater than doing sporadic, longer ones.
Like thinking about speaking English again, the sources mention that initial shyness, that fear.
Yeah.
But if you commit to speaking just a little bit every day, maybe just, describing your morning routine to yourself in the mirror,
Yeah.
that consistent practice makes you more comfortable over time.
Right.
Helps you find the words faster, reduces that fear of messing up.
Exactly. That comfort, that fluency, it comes from the consistent exposure and practice. It's not some sudden leap you make. And that ties directly into the next major benefit the sources really highlight. Consistency builds discipline.
Discipline, okay. How do they define that?
They define discipline not as like rigid self-punishment, but more as the capacity to do what's necessary, what you know you should do, even when it's not easy or convenient.
Which is absolutely essential because, like we said, motivation won't always be there to carry you.
Precisely. So by consistently showing up for your habit, especially on those days when it's really tough, you are actively training your ability to manage your time, your energy, your focus. You're building that muscle. And the sources argue this discipline isn't just stuck in one box. It's not siloed. It's a transferable skill.
Yeah.
It benefits you in every area of your life, work projects, managing your money, sticking to health goals, everything.
So the habit of consistency actually cultivates the skill of discipline, which then makes it easier to be consistent in other areas. It creates this incredibly virtuous cycle.
It really does, yeah. And a hugely significant benefit, according to the sources, maybe one of the most important, is building confidence.
Confidence. How does that work?
Well, think about it. Every single time you complete that small, consistent task, you're gathering evidence, proof for yourself.
Evidence that you can do it.
Exactly. You prove to yourself daily, I can set a goal and I can take action towards it. even a small action.
That internal validation, that must be incredibly powerful over time.
It really is. The sources suggest this confidence actually changes your whole outlook, your bearing. You become more willing to take risks, to try things that maybe intimidated you before.
Like speaking English in a meeting.
Exactly. Or applying for that promotion or starting that challenging project you've been putting off. This belief in your ability to make progress step by step consistently is a direct result of that consistent action.
It fundamentally changes your relationship with challenges then.
Yeah.
They seem less like huge mountains because you trust your ability to just consistently chip away at them.
Well put. Yeah. They also touch briefly on how consistency improves personal well-being and relationships, too.
How so?
Things like consistent, small, healthy choices every day, like opting for a 15-minute walk or choosing water instead of soda most of the time. These are far more impactful for long-term health than, say, trying a crash diet or doing one single grueling workout session.
Right, the sustainable approach versus the extreme.
Yeah, and in relationships, too. Being consistently kind, consistently present, showing small acts of care daily that strengthens bonds far more effectively than infrequent, big, grand gestures. It builds trust, reliability.
That makes sense, the daily texture of the relationship.
Exactly. The sources make a strong case that consistency in those small acts of kindness and presence builds the strongest foundations in our personal connections. And then, specifically circling back to language learners, the sources strongly emphasize that learning English depends on this principle. It's not optional.
Because language isn't something you learn once and you're done. It's absorbed. It's built through using it again and again.
Yes. Hearing it, reading it, trying to speak it, actively using it, these things need to happen frequently.
Yeah.
Often, the sources are really clear. Short, daily practice is the most effective way to make your English grow steadily, like that well-watered plant we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Whether it's listening to a short podcast on your commute, writing just 5 sentences in a journal, practicing vocabulary with an app for 10 minutes, or speaking to yourself or a friend. These small, consistent habits are the real engine of language learning progress.
So the benefits are really wide-ranging then. Actual skill mastery, building discipline, boosting confidence, better health, stronger relationships, and for language learners, steady, reliable progress. And it all stems from this simple principle of just showing up.
It really does. And again, the sources just keep circling back to it. You don't need perfection, you just need presence. Show up daily, trust the process, and these benefits will naturally start to build up over time.
Okay, so we get the power, we see the benefits. But let's be real here. Staying consistent isn't some kind of magical state you just enter and then you never falter.
Not at all.
The sources are actually quite realistic about the challenges you're definitely going to face along the way.
They are, and that's important. They emphasize that facing challenges is not a sign that you're failing. It's a completely normal, expected part of the journey for absolutely everyone. That initial burst of excitement and motivation, it fades for everyone.
Right. That's when the real work starts.
That's when the real work of consistency begins, and yeah, you're going to encounter hurdles.
What are some of the main ones the sources call out? What should people expect?
Boredom is a big one, a really common one. Doing the same thing every single day, even if you know it's important, well, it can just get monotonous, can't it?
Definitely. Like if your only English practice is listening to the exact same type of news podcast every day, you might start to dread it after a while.
Exactly. So the solution the sources suggest isn't to quit the habit entirely when boredom strikes. It's to strategically vary the execution.
Ah, okay. Mix it up a bit.
Yeah, keep the core habit, but change the specifics sometimes. If you're listening daily, maybe try a different topic. Listen to a story podcast instead of news. Find a YouTube video with subtitles on a subject you like. If you normally write about your day, try describing a picture instead.
So small changes to keep it fresh.
Exactly. Keep it fresh, engage different parts of your brain, fight off that boredom, but crucially, maintain the underlying consistency of the daily practice.
Okay.
Another major challenge is just feeling tired or having low energy. This is universal, right? After a long day at work or with the kids, the thought of sitting down to do your habit, whatever it is, can feel like climbing Mount Everest.
Oh, I definitely relate to that one. Sometimes my brain just feels completely fried. Nothing left in the tank.
Totally. And the sources offer a really practical strategy here. Radically reduce the requirement for that day, but do not skip.
So lower the bar, but still step over it.
Exactly. If your goal was 30 minutes of study, Just do 5 minutes. Seriously. If you plan to do active speaking practice, maybe just listen passively to something while you're lying on the sofa. The absolute key is to maintain the chain. Keep the habit alive, even if the link for that day is tiny, almost microscopic.
Why is that so important?
Because doing something, no matter how small, reinforces the habit. It keeps the pathway active in your brain, and it makes it infinitely easier to get back to your normal routine the next day compared to if you had skipped entirely. Breaking the chain makes restarting much harder.
Ah, okay. So is prioritizing the habit survival over the intensity of that one session? Keep the engine idling, don't turn it off completely.
Precisely. The sources talk about it as keeping the promise to yourself, even on those days when your capacity is really low. Then there are distractions, a huge one in today's world.
Tell me about it. Phones, notifications, social media, they're practically designed to derail focus.
They are, and it's so easy for that "I'll just check for 5 minutes on your phone" to turn into half an hour or more, completely derailing your planned habit time.
Guilty as charged.
We all are. So the sources really stress the importance of creating a specific dedicated time and, if possible, space for your habit, free from those tempting distractions.
Like putting the phone in another room.
Exactly.
Okay.
Turning off notifications, closing unnecessary browser tabs, even just 10 or 15 minutes of genuinely focused effort is far more effective than an hour where you're constantly distracted. Protect that time. Treat it as important.
It's about respecting the habit enough to give it your full, even if brief, attention. Makes sense.
Yes. And then, perhaps the biggest internal battle we all face is that insidious desire to give up. Those thoughts that creep in.
I'm not getting any better.
Yes. Or this is just too hard. It's not working for me. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this.
Those are the moments when you feel like that glass of water is never going to fill up. Like you're just wasting your time dropping water in.
Exactly. And the sources are so clear on this point. These thoughts are normal. They are not objective reality. They are part of the process of learning, of stretching yourself, of growth. They don't mean you're failing.
That's reassuring.
It is. They emphasize that progress isn't always linear. It's not always visible day to day. It's like that seed analogy again. You water it every day, but you don't see the roots growing down there underground. But they are.
So the feelings of doubt, they don't mean you should stop. They just mean you're experiencing the natural difficulty of getting better at something hard.
Precisely. So when these challenges inevitably hit, the sources suggest some practical ways to push through. First, reconnect with your why.
Your reason for starting in the first place.
Yes. Why did you want to learn English? Was it for a better job opportunity? To travel more confidently? To connect with new people or understand movies without subtitles? Write it down. Put it somewhere you can see it. Remembering that larger purpose can provide the fuel you need during those difficult moments.
That makes sense. Remind yourself what's at stake.
And making the task as small as possible, like we mentioned for the low energy days, that's crucial here too.
Lower the bar again.
Absolutely. Lower it drastically if you need to. Just clear it. Write one sentence. Listen for 1 minute. Review one vocabulary word. Any small action is a victory on a hard day. It keeps the momentum, however small. The sources also emphasize celebrating the small wins. This feels really important when the big goal seems so far away. It is. You have to acknowledge that you showed up today, even if it was just for 5 minutes. That is progress. Give yourself credit for that. This little bit of positive reinforcement helps counteract that negative inner voice that's telling you it's not enough.
Fight the negativity with small acknowledgments.
Exactly. And sometimes connecting with others can help too. Sharing your struggles with a friend, maybe a language partner, or even an online community focus on language learning. It reminds you you're not alone in finding it hard, and you can get encouragement and support.
And what if you do stumble? What if you miss a day or maybe even a few days? Is it all over?
No, absolutely not. The sources are very, very forgiving on this point. It is okay. Missing a day is not failure. The only failure is quitting entirely. The most important thing, if you miss a day, is simply to return to the habit as soon as possible.
Don't beat yourself up about it.
Don't beat yourself up. Don't let one missed day snowball into 2, or let a missed week turn into a month off. Just start again the very next day. The real power isn't in never falling down. It's in always getting back up.
So the takeaway for challenges: expect them, have strategies ready, lower the bar when needed, remember your why, celebrate small wins, connect with others, be kind to yourself, and always, always just get back on track.
Yes. That's pretty much the playbook the sources suggest for navigating the inevitable bumps on the road to consistency.
All right, let's get even more practical now. We know what consistency is, we understand why it's so powerful, and we know the challenges. How specifically do the sources advise us to actually build this habit? And then, crucially, maintain it in our daily lives.
Right. This is where the rubber really meets the road. How do you actually do it? The sources offer some really clear, actionable steps. And they always start with that foundational principle we've already touched on. Start small.
Really small. Don't overcommit right at the beginning.
Exactly. They explicitly warn against setting these huge, overly ambitious goals right out of the gate, like deciding you're going to study English for 2 hours every single day, starting tomorrow. Or you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. to write your novel.
That sets you up for failure, usually.
It often leads straight to burnout and quitting within a week or two. Instead, choose a habit that feels almost ridiculously easy, like 5 minutes of English listening, writing just one single sentence, doing literally one push-up.
When it feels that easy, it just removes that initial barrier, doesn't it? That feeling of dread.
Completely. And it makes you far, far more likely to actually do it. Once that tiny, tiny habit is established, once it feels natural and automatic, then you can think about gradually increasing the time or the intensity. But the sources really stress that the initial goal is just building the consistency itself, the simple act of showing up.
Okay, start tiny. What's next? The sources talk about making it a routine, right?
Yes, and this is crucial for getting beyond relying purely on willpower, which we know is unreliable. They recommend attaching your new habit to something you already do automatically every single day. It's a technique called habit stacking.
Habit stacking.
Yeah.
Like learning those English words right after you make your morning coffee.
Perfect example, and one used in the sources. After I pour my morning coffee, I will spend 5 minutes reviewing flashcards. Or maybe, after I brush my teeth at night, I will listen to an English podcast for 10 minutes. By linking the new habit you want to build to an existing, solid one, you're basically leveraging the momentum of the established routine.
It makes it part of a natural sequence.
Exactly. It becomes a natural flow, making it much harder to forget or just skip. Your brain starts to associate the trigger, like finishing your coffee, with the new habit, like doing those flashcards. It becomes automatic.
Okay, link it to something you already do. Got it. What else?
The sources also strongly, strongly advocate for tracking your progress visibly.
Ah, the visual representation of your consistency, making it tangible.
Yes. Use a calendar, a simple notebook, maybe an app on your phone, whatever works for you. Put a check mark, a big X, maybe a colorful sticker for every single day you complete your habit. Seeing that visual chain grow provides incredibly powerful motivation. It's a tangible record of your effort.
It makes that progress,
Yeah.
which often feels invisible day to day, actually visible. You can see it building.
It really does. And the sources point out that when you see that long chain of X's or check marks, you become psychologically more motivated not to break it. You don't want to ruin the streak.
Right, the don't break the chain idea.
Exactly. And if you do miss a day because life happens, don't obsess over the break. Instead, look back at all the days you didn't miss. Acknowledge the overall consistency, and then just focus on getting back on track immediately the next day to continue the chain.
And celebrating those consistent days helps too, you mentioned.
Yes, rewarding yourself is another key piece the sources consistently mention. After, say, a week or maybe 2 weeks of solid, consistent effort, give yourself a small reward, something you genuinely enjoy.
What kind of rewards?
It could be really simple. Watching an episode of a favorite show, having a special snack you like, taking a nice relaxing walk. Or, in the context of English learning, maybe allowing yourself to watch a short clip from an English movie you love, maybe without subtitles this time, just for fun.
So the reward creates a positive feedback loop. Your brain connects the habit with something pleasant.
Exactly. It links that feeling of pleasure or accomplishment directly to the consistent behavior, which makes your brain naturally want to repeat it. And the rewards don't need to be big or expensive. Even just consciously acknowledging your success to yourself, like saying, "Well done, I did it again today," can help reinforce the habit.
Okay. And the sources also really stress practicing every day, don't they?
Yes, every single day. Even on those low energy days we talked about where you have to scale it way back.
Why is daily so important? Why not, say, 5 days a week?
Because even a minimal effort keeps the habit alive and active in your mind and routine. The sources are really clear. Skipping days makes it much harder to restart the momentum. It allows doubt and resistance to creep back in more easily. Some days the practice will feel easy, productive, enjoyable. Other days it will feel like pulling teeth. That's normal. But showing up daily normalizes the habit. It becomes just something you do, like brushing your teeth. not this optional pass that depends on whether you feel motivated or have loads of time. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect feeling, just act.
Just do it, even if it's tiny.
Just do it. And that ties back to the classic advice related to tracking. Don't break the chain.
Right, the visual motivation.
It's that visual strategy again. Seeing that growing chain of completed days on your calendar becomes this powerful psychological driver to keep it going. The sources use this image to really emphasize that while, yes, missing a day isn't the end of the world, the goal should be to keep that chain unbroken as much as possible. And if you do miss...
Or new chain tomorrow.
Exactly. The most critical step, according to all the sources, is simply starting a new chain the very next day. Don't let it derail you. The power is in returning, always returning, not in achieving unattainable perfection.
Okay, so the practical roadmap from the sources seems to be: start ridiculously small. Link the new habit to something you already do every day. Track your progress visually. Reward your consistent effort. And show up every single day no matter what, even if it's just for a symbolic minute.
That's it, exactly. These simple, straightforward steps, when you apply them consistently, build an incredibly powerful foundation for pretty much any habit you want to develop, and especially for something like consistent language learning.
And the sources really bring all these points together beautifully in a compelling narrative, the story of Omar.
Ah, yes, Omar's story. It's featured quite prominently in the sources as this living, breathing illustration of all these principles in action. It's a really powerful testament to how profound change can actually come from really simple, consistent effort.
And he tried before, right? Tried to learn English and failed, always struggling with that consistency piece.
Yes, the sources mention his history, that typical cycle. Start with huge enthusiasm, maybe buy a bunch of books, sign up for something, and get overwhelmed or discouraged by slow progress, and eventually just quit.
Been there.
I think many of us have. He doubted himself, apparently, started thinking maybe he just wasn't good at languages. But he still held on to that dream, you know?
Yeah.
Being able to travel confidently, understand movies without relying on subtitles.
And then he came across this really simple advice, almost too simple: just do 5 minutes a day.
Exactly. And he was skeptical, naturally. How could just 5 minutes possibly lead to fluency? It seemed way too small, almost pointless compared to the size of the goal. But having failed with the bigger, more ambitious plans before, he figured, what have I got to lose? He decided to try the radical simplicity that the sources were advocating.
So what did you do?
He downloaded some beginner English audio lessons, and he committed to listening for exactly 5 minutes every single day. No pressure to understand everything, no pressure to do more, even if he felt like it sometimes. Just hit the 5-minute mark.
So he started tiny, took the pressure off, and integrated it into his day somehow.
Exactly. He listened while he was making his morning tea, or while waiting for his computer to boot up at work, or sometimes just before going to bed. The sources really highlight that he didn't need to find extra time. He just wove it into the existing little cracks and gaps in his day.
And he started tracking it.
Yes. He started tracking it in a small, simple notebook, just making a little check mark for each day he did his 5 minutes.
And seeing those check marks accumulate must have been really key for him.
It was apparently transformative, according to the sources. After a week, he had 7 check marks. Okay, not bad. After a month, 30 check marks. And for the first time, he saw this undeniable visual proof of his own consistency. The chain was growing, and that felt like progress. Even if his English ability hadn't magically transformed overnight, he was keeping his promise to himself.
And then slowly, that tiny 5 minutes started to grow, didn't it?
Yes, the sources describe how, as the 5-minute habit became really solid, really automatic and easy, he just naturally started extending it. Didn't force it. 5 minutes became 10, then 10 sometimes became 15. Eventually, he was comfortably doing 30 minutes most days.
And adding other small things.
Yeah, he began layering on other small, manageable habits. Writing down one new word he heard each day. Repeating a sentence or two out loud from the audio, watching a short children's cartoon in English sometimes. Small additions built on that consistent foundation.
And because that foundation, that daily habit was already there, it didn't feel like this massive struggle to add things. It felt more natural.
That's the absolutely crucial part of Omar's journey as described in the sources. It wasn't about heroic, gritted teeth effort every day. It was about making it a normal, unremarkable part of his daily rhythm, like brushing his teeth. So when his friend, who knew about all his past struggles with quitting, expressed genuine surprise months later at how much his English had improved, Omar shared that simple secret, which the sources quote directly, "I didn't learn fast, I just didn't stop."
I didn't learn fast, I just didn't stop.
Wow.
That's the power of consistency right there, in human form.
His story, as it's told in the sources, just powerfully illustrates that success often isn't about having some amazing innate talent or finding a magical shortcut. For him, it came purely from committing to a small, manageable action and simply repeating it, day in, day out. He trusted the process even when the individual steps felt insignificant.
And the results came.
They did. A year into this consistent approach, he apparently felt confident enough to finally join a proper language class. And he found he could actually understand the teacher quite well. He could participate actively. He even started helping some of the other students who were struggling.
That's amazing. And now, the sources say, he uses English daily in his job at a travel agency, which was basically his original dream.
Exactly. A dream that probably felt completely impossible back when he was stuck in that cycle of starting and quitting. His success, according to the sources, was a direct, undeniable result of prioritizing consistency over intensity or speed. He just stayed consistent, believed in the power of those small steps, and ended up transforming his skills and his life through that simple, repeated daily action.
It's such a powerful testament that success is usually built brick by brick, not just stumbled upon.
Yeah, it really shows that by focusing on the daily process, that small, consistent effort, you can achieve really remarkable outcomes without getting completely overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the final goal.
Okay, so pulling all of this together now, especially with Omar's story fresh in our minds, the sources offer some final thoughts, maybe some specific recap points, particularly relevant for someone listening who is trying to learn English, emphasizing the most crucial takeaways.
Yes, they do kind of consolidate the advice specifically with the language learner in mind. They definitely reiterate the huge value of practicing for even just 15 to 30 minutes daily. The focus should be on making it a simple, automatic habit you barely have to think about.
Like using those pockets of downtime. We mentioned the commute, cooking, waiting for something.
Exactly. Listen to a podcast while you're walking or chopping vegetables. Write one simple sentence in English about your day or how you're feeling before bed. Speak to yourself in the mirror for 2 minutes, just describing what you see or what you did. Or find a friend to practice with. Even just exchanging a few sentences via message each day. The specific activity the sources suggest matters less than the consistency of the practice itself.
Keep showing up.
Keep showing up. And a really critical point the sources make, echoing what we talked about with challenges, is about mistakes.
Yes. Don't let mistakes stop you.
Yeah.
Don't let the fear of mistakes stop you.
Absolutely not. The sources are really adamant about this. Mistakes are not failures. They are essential feedback. They are simply part of the learning process, just like a toddler falling down hundreds of times when learning to walk. You have to accept corrections willingly, even gratefully, and view them as helpful guides showing you where to adjust. Don't let the fear of sounding silly or making an error break that precious consistency chain.
Because making mistakes means you're actually trying, you're pushing your boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
Exactly. It's proof of effort. And another really vital piece of advice repeated often in the sources, do not compare your progress to others.
Oh, that's a big one. Easy to fall into that trap.
So easy, especially with social media. But everyone's journey is unique. The sources really stress that learning rates vary hugely from person to person, depending on background, time available, learning style, everything. Focus on your own journey, your own check marks on the calendar, your own growing chain. Compare yourself only to where you were yesterday or last week. Your progress is valid, no matter how it looks next to someone else's. The key is your continuous effort.
Stay in your own lane. Run your own race.
Pretty much. And finally, echoing the advice for handling those tough challenges, be kind to yourself.
Self-compassion.
Yes, learning a language or achieving any big goal takes time. It's hard work. Consistency is a practice. It's a process. It's not a state of perfection you suddenly achieve. There will be days when it's hard, days when you miss a session, days when you feel really discouraged. Be patient with yourself. Be compassionate. Acknowledge the effort you are making. Celebrate those small wins. And trust that by simply showing up again and again, you are building something significant.
So as we kind of reach the end of this deep dive, the overarching message from all these sources seems incredibly clear. Quite simple on the surface, but really profoundly impactful when you think about it.
It really is. They constantly remind us that visible results often take time. Progress isn't usually instant. It's not always obvious day to day. But with consistent effort, those results will come. You have to trust that. Don't let the apparent slowness discourage you in those early stages.
It really is like planting that seed, isn't it? You don't see the roots spreading underground every day, but the consistent care, that daily watering, that's what guarantees it will eventually sprout and grow and thrive.
Exactly. Learning, achieving anything worthwhile, it's a process. It demands time and it demands patience. And the sources just affirm that this isn't just okay, it's the natural order of things. So focus on your own path, celebrate every small step forward, no matter how tiny it seems.
In this world that seems obsessed with speed and instant gratification, the quiet power of consistency feels like a really vital countermessage, a more sustainable path.
It really is. And when you feel that familiar pull, that voice telling you to give up, the sources urge you. Anchor yourself back to your why. Reconnect with that original reason you started this journey in the first place.
Hold on to that purpose. That's the fuel for the moments when just showing up feels like the hardest thing in the world.
Absolutely. And those moments of difficulty, of frustration, when you really want to quit but you push through anyway, the sources suggest those are often the times you're growing the most. Pushing through when it's tough builds resilience right alongside consistency.
That's a great point. The struggle itself is productive. And your future self, right? The one who has achieved the goal you're working towards now. That future self is being built by the consistent actions, however small, that you take today.
That's a really powerful perspective shift, isn't it? To see the effort now not as a chore, but as a direct investment in your future capability, your future confidence, your future self.
So the core message then, the single idea to carry away from this deep dive into all these sources.
Consistency is the engine. Little by little, every single day you are making progress, whether you can see it or feel it in that moment or not. Keep showing up for yourself. That's the key.
And to leave you listening with that fantastic phrase from the sources, the one that perhaps best summarizes this entire deep dive.
Success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out.
Success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out. It just completely reframes how we think about achievement, doesn't it? Away from grand gestures and towards the power of the everyday.
It really does.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the profound yet simple power of consistency. We really hope these insights gathered from the sources inspire you to trust that process and to keep taking those small, steady steps on your own journey, whatever it may be.
Yeah, remember, it's definitely not about being perfect. It's just about being present. Keep returning to your practice, whatever it is. Believe in the power of your own daily effort. You're building so much more than just a skill. You're building resilience, discipline, and that crucial self-belief. You really have got this.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep taking those steps forward day by day.